All right, this is a quick introduction for Chapter 3, Inequalities. Look back at Chapter 2 first, and we recall that we would solve an equation. We would get one solution, meaning there was one value we could plug in for the variable back into the original equation and get a true statement. Now we're moving to Chapter 3, and we will be solving inequalities. So the first thing to remember or learn is that there are two distinct differences between equations from Chapter 2 and inequalities from Chapter 3. The first difference is that an inequality has an infinite number of solutions. This is what we're focusing on in section 3.1. Because an inequality has an infinite number of solutions, we will be graphing the solution to our inequalities. That's what we'll be working on tonight. Now, the second difference between equations and inequalities comes into play in section 3.2 and beyond. And that is when we multiply or divide both sides of an inequality by a negative value. Sorry, that word negative got erased there. By a negative value, we have to flip the inequality. When we multiply or divide both sides of an inequality by a negative value, we have to flip the inequality. And when we would do that would be whenever the coefficient is negative, because we would have to multiply or divide both sides of an inequality by a negative value in order to get that coefficient of +1. Again, that second difference comes into play for sections 3.2 and beyond. Right now we're going to focus on the fact that an inequality has an infinite number of solutions, and because of that, we graph the solution. So let's look back again at what Chapter 2 looked like. If we solve 3x minus 4 equals 8, we would get x equals 4. We didn't graph it because x equals 4 and 4 selected on a number line don't look very different. They tell the same story. However, if we had 3x minus 4 is less than 8, we added 4 to both sides, we divided by 3, we got x is less than 4. Now we graph that solution right there, and that tells a much more clear story of what my solution is. It's everything in that selected area, okay? So first thing for a graph, we're gonna understand that we are going to select and shade our solution. Again, we're going to select and shade our solution. All right, so a few steps to graphing inequalities. The first is we have to make sure that we completely understand the signs. What I discussed in class is that we have to graduate from what you may have been taught or heard when you were in grade school or middle school, and that is that these inequalities are alligator mouths that eat the bigger number. Well, that's fine when you have two values. However, we can't use that anymore because our variable is unknown to us. We don't know if the variable is larger or smaller than a different number. So we have to actually learn how to read these inequalities as they are. So look at these inequalities in this example, read them from left to right. If you look at the left side of this sign, am I first getting to the greater part of that sign or the lesser part of that sign? And clearly, if I'm right here, I'm looking at the lesser part of that sign first. So this sign is less than, okay? Opposite would be true here. If I'm looking at this sign and I am going from left to right, I'm reading it, I come to the greater part of the sign first. So this is greater than, okay? Then we also have less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. What's important to remember is if I were to just cover up this part of the sign, what's left? That's just it's an equal sign, guys. That's all it is, right? So that line underneath is half of an equal sign. That's what that represents, half of an equal sign. So it is less than, or it could be equal to. This one is greater than, or could be equal to, okay? So very first, let's make sure we understand those inequalities and how to read them. Now, how do we graph them? So, first thing we do here for 3-1, because these will already be solved, is we read the inequality. So this first example is x is less than or equal to 12. I call that key value there. That is what's going to go in the middle of your number line. So just put the key value in the middle of the number line. Show me that you understand that left is less and right is greater. And how you show me that is by putting one number that's larger to the right and one number that's less to the left. Okay? Then I say to myself, is 12 part of the solution? Because x can be less than or equal to 12, I know that 12 is part of the solution. So, remember over here where we said we select and shade the solution? Well, that's what we're going to do here. We're going to select and shade 12 because it's part of the solution. And then we're going to select and shade everything less than that. And yes, I want you to include the arrow. And yes, I want it shaded. I don't just want a line pointing that to the left. So please select and shade your solution. Second example, x is greater than -7. Put my key value in the middle, -7. Put one that's greater than it, -6. One that's less than it, -8. It's going to be an open circle on -7 because it is not part of the solution. If I plug -7 in for that x, I would get -7 is greater than -7. Is that a true statement? No, it is not a true statement. So -7 is not a solution, right? It's not part of the solution. So I put an open circle around -7 and I shade where x is greater than that, which is to the right. All right, next one. -3 is less than x. We are never going to read that way. What I mean by that is we always want to read from the variable. Read from the variable. So take a look at that one again. Let's start with what we care about, which is x, okay? X is what? If I read this sign from the x is greater than -3. X is greater than -3. So I go to my key value, put it in the middle, -3. It's an open circle because it is not or equal to. It's not part of the solution. And then I want x that is greater than that. So that's going to go to the right. Okay? X is greater than -3. X is greater than -3. All right. Homework for tonight starts on page 402, 8 to 58 evens. Email me if you have any trouble. See you tomorrow.